Здравствуйте, Assalamu alaikum, Guten Tag, Ni hao, Konnichiwa, Hola, and a big welcome to the Knitters Party podcast. I always try to find new ones, but I'm sort of in a routine with my languages that I know how to say hello in. I'm sure I could learn a few more and improve the podcast a little bit. So if you know how to say hello in a different language, one that I haven't said, please let me know in the comments below. You can write it in your native language and then maybe a transliteration in English, just so that I know sort of how to pronounce it. And of course, tell me which language it's in. I would absolutely love to say hello in your native language. Anyway, this is a knitting podcast. This is the Knitters Party podcast, in fact. My name is Megan. I am coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, where I live with my husband currently, but I will be returning home to the United States fairly soon. I'm looking forward to going home and to sort of finding a job and everything like that, but I'm really excited just to see you guys here each and every other week, I suppose. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Meg311yo. I also sell patterns on Ravelry, loveknitting.com, and etsy.com, and all of those links to my pattern shops are in the doobly-doo below. If you're interested in either any shawls, I've designed a shawl pattern now, and I've got several amigurumi, or little knitted stuffed animal thing patterns. And those amigurumi patterns are super updated. I have like a sort of a picture tutorial to go with it. Anyway, I'm just trying to plug my my pattern sales a little bit, so definitely check me out in the Ravelry store, loveknitting.com, or etsy.com. Anyway, let's get into the knitting content today. How are you guys doing? I always feel like I talk so much about myself and I talk about my knitting, I talk about so many things, but I never stop to ask you how you guys are doing, so I apologize. I'm not trying to be selfish here on the Knitters Party podcast. I'm here to spread the love, spread the happiness, spread the knitting cheer. So that's all that is. Anyway, I have been riding a roller coaster of emotions lately. I'll talk a little bit at the end of sort of a life update, but I've been really happy to have my knitting here to help me relieve some stress. I don't know if you can hear it, but I am a little bit sick right now. I can't tell if it's allergies or just a cold. It seems to have been moving so fast. It's like one day my throat hurts, the very next day I'm a little sniffly, the very next day I am drowning in my own sniffles, and then today I'm feeling so much better. The whole time I've been sick for like 4 days exactly, and I've had energy all the way through it, and I know I get sort of like seasonal allergies, but I don't know what's changed in Egypt. It's only summer. But I am sorry if I sound a little sniffly. I'm feeling a little sniffly, but I'll try not to sniffle too much on the podcast. Cool. All right, let's get into the knitting content, shall we? I will start off with, what am I wearing? This right here is the Britannia sweater by Tin Can Knits. Now, I've made a couple of modifications. The center cable that you see here is not the cable that is actually written in the pattern. This is a cable pattern which is in the Celtic Cable Neck Warmer by Lindsay Hendricks. I've made 3 of them now. I have no intentions of stopping making these beautiful neck warmers, but I just love the cable that goes with it. And so I changed out the cable from the Britannia sweater by Tin Can Knits. Everything else is the same though. This yarn is Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock in the colorway Grape Jelly, and boy does it feel like it. It's 100 degrees today in Cairo, Egypt, and I don't know why I'm wearing a sweater. I just wanted to wear something hand knit. They make me feel good, and I've worn my one and only knitted t-shirt that I have with me. I've worn that one a couple of times on the podcast already, so I wanted to wear something different, and I sent my parents home with all my other sweaters, and so this is the only one that I have in Egypt. So you are seeing the Britannia long sleeve Britannia sweater by Tin Can Knits. It's a really great pattern. It is paid for, but like any Tin Can Knits pattern, it's exceptionally well written. Pattern sizes from like toddler to 4 or 6XL. It's like really size inclusive, age inclusive, gender inclusive. I love Tin Can Knits. They're fantastic. Anyway, let's get into sort of what I've been up to and what I've been knitting. I only have one finished object to share with you today, but it is one that I am extremely proud of. Oh, that's showing up perfectly. This is the Green Willow Cowl by Elizabeth Doherty. And this is knit in Knit Picks Gloss DK weight yarn. It is, I believe, 75%. Here, I saved the label because I knew I wanted to talk about it. This is 70% merino wool and 30% silk. And this is in the colorway Jade. And it is perfectly true to color right now. This lovely blue-green. Okay, a little bit about the pattern. First of all, let me put it on because this thing is beautiful. It's going to be nice and warm in the winter. This is knit as a gift for my mother-in-law, and she knows that she's receiving it, but she won't see this because she's coming to visit me in Egypt tomorrow, so she's going to miss this update. She's going to be able to just take these home and enjoy them all fall, winter, spring, pretty much any time in Canada. It is cold. So this cowl pattern was amazing. A little bit about it. It is knit from side to side in the round. So there are quite a few stitches. I think I cast on like 230 stitches. The pattern is written for a small size and a large size. I cast on somewhere right in between. So I essentially made a medium-sized cowl. And I'm really happy I did because I have a tiny ball of yarn left. I bought 3 balls of this Knit Picks Gloss DK yarn to knit this cowl. The large size was said to have used exactly 369 yards, which is exactly how many yards are in the Knit Picks yarn. And so I was like, you know, like this stitch right here is not your standard knitting and purling. So I was like, I don't know how my gauge is going to be affected. I could be knitting this looser than is intended. So I'm not going to risk running out of yarn and not finishing this cowl. And so I cast on a medium size. This stitch is really interesting. It is so much more than knitting and purling. I don't even know how to describe it. You'll have to buy the pattern. It is a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give it away. But these like sideways stitches, they're easy to do, but they require quite a bit of stitch manipulation. You're knitting into the back and into the front. You're knitting into like 2 stitches at once. It's like, I had to use my sharpest needles. I ended up using my Chowgu red lace twist needles, which I don't like, to be honest, but they're so sharp that they were perfect for like sliding in between these like tight stitches that you have to do. But I absolutely love it. It starts with like, it actually starts with a provisional cast on. You knit a little bit of ribbing. So this is like 4x2 ribbing. They have you do this cool sideways braid, they call it. Then all of this knitting, another sideways braid, a little bit more ribbing, and then this is an I-cord bind off. And then after you bind off one side, you come back, you pick up your provisional cast on stitches and you I-cord bind off the second side. I am super lucky that I didn't run out of yarn. I was playing a bit of Yarn Chicken. Do I have the little ball? I do. This is all the yarn I have left for this gigantic thing. And I bought three balls from knitpicks.com, which should have been enough to make a large size. So I'm really happy I stuck with my gut on there because I felt, I wasn't worried about playing Yarn Chicken, but I wasn't exactly about to do the extra repeat of the pattern that it called for. So having been an I-cord bind off, you have to like connect them at the end. And I don't think my end is as seamless as it could be. But it's soft. My problem with an I-cord bind off is whenever I connect them, I always end up with this hard ball of like knotted stitches where you do the first I-cord bind off. So I tried to make it as smooth as possible. It's very smooth. You won't be able to feel any pressure on the neck or anything. And where actually that's pretty invisible. Ah, there we go. You can see where I've connected a ball of yarn. I weaved in my ends so well that I had to like search to find it. And because this is a gift, I really wanted to make the finishing quite good. And so that's what I've done. Anyway, my one and only finished object, this is the Green Willow Cowl by Elizabeth Doherty. I absolutely adore this pattern. It was a slow going knit, but I enjoyed it. Every minute I enjoyed it. It's just something that you can't do for too long. I actually sit and knit this while watching a bunch of podcasts, so it's not bad for TV knitting. So that is that. While we're on the subject of my mother-in-law, the reason I wanted to podcast today is because, like I said, she's coming to visit us tomorrow. So for the next week, I will be a tourist in Cairo, which I love being. And so I'm also going to be giving my mother-in-law all of the knits that I've made for her that she's going to get to take home. And so these are the things that she is taking home with her. Of course, she's got the lovely green willow cowl. She also has these, which are the mermaid scales fingerless mitts. Mermaid scales fingerless mitts, and this is by Lena Matheson, I believe. I will put the information below. And this yarn is just something I picked up in Egypt. It's super crunchy and not quite soft, but they're beautiful mittens, and I love that pattern, the mermaid scale pattern. So she's going home with some fingerless mitts, and she has the little, God, everything I'm wearing today is the same color as the knits I'm showing off, apparently. She's also taking home the meant to be shawlette. Look at that lace. Oh, I love that. The meant to be shawlette. I will put the designer's name in the whatever, you'll see it right here. So she is taking home these 3 beautiful items for her. So Mom, I absolutely love you. You're one of the most knit-worthy people I know, and I'm so happy to gift you all these amazing things. So hope you enjoy them. I hope they keep you warm, and tell me if you ever want me to stop knitting for you, because you're gonna get a collection as big as mine one day. So she's going home with 3 beautiful and probably coordinating hand knits. I love this. It's like Christmas. I get to gift my mother-in-law all these beautiful things. Okay, that is all for my finished objects. Sorry, I feel like I ramble so much. Let's get into my works in progress. Excuse me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like sniffly. All right, my first work in progress, living in the lovely peacock project bag by Nola Dalil Designs. Nola Dalil Designs. Lovely bag. I finally decided on a pattern, and I'm not gonna rip these out, not even one more frickin' time. Excuse me. I decided to make these Scatterbee socks by Amy Stringer. This is a free pattern, and actually I saw this on another podcast. I think it was the Knitted Cupcake. I watched her podcast. If you don't know her, she's a sweetheart. Oh my God, and she makes beautiful hand knit items. So if you need another podcast to watch the Knitted Cupcake. And also I found out another cool podcast. It's called Love of the Dark. She's actually a person who test knit the Veni Vidi Vici shawl for me, and come to find out she's got a podcast where she talks about her knitting as well as some really amazing sort of other hobbies that she does as well. So check out those 2 podcasts, the Knitted Cupcake and the Love of the Dark. I'll link them in the box below as well. But I decided to make the Scatterbee socks, and now you're gonna see the pattern is different up to here than it is to here. I made a mistake and did not read the pattern quite correctly. But fuck it, I've cast on these socks like probably 6 times. I've ripped back to the toe at least 5 or 6 times. So they're gonna just be imperfectly perfect socks for me, because I just don't care, and I'm done ripping back and correcting these socks, because this yarn, you can see it already, is super like crinkly. It's super crinkly yarn because I've re-knit this so many times. So, about the yarn. This yarn here is leftover Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock in the colorway Grape Jelly. That was from my beautiful sweater pattern here. So this was leftover for the toes and probably the cuffs. I won't have enough to do heels as well, but that's okay, because this color is Malabrigo sock yarn in the colorway Wales Road. I don't actually think they match super well, but again, I'm done re-knitting these and pulling them back. I had knit a set of Hermione's Everyday Socks with this yarn for my friend Lindsay, who received them, and I wanted to knit some for myself because this color is amazing and this yarn is so soft, and so I'm making myself some socks. So hooray! That is the Scatterbee sock by Amy Stringer. That's all I have to say about those. So let's keep moving along, shall we? The next thing I'm knitting is tangled, apparently. The next thing I am knitting, I'm going to try and put this so that it is supposed to look like this. Not gonna happen. Okay, this thing is so weird. This, you can see it from the back quite well. This is the Latte Baby Coat by Lisa Shemry. And this is a baby coat, just as it says, that is knit in stockinette. You're looking at the back of it right now. It's a raglan style coat, knit in stockinette, and then you cast on the sort of lapel collar in this beautiful like rickrack stitch. And this yarn is, actually I've got some here, and the label is gone. This yarn is what I'm using for it. This is Knit Picks Brava Bulky. It's 100% acrylic yarn, but this is for my sister who is vegan, and so she does not want any wool, no animal fibers whatsoever, and so for a heavyweight coat, it was either cotton or acrylic, and I think acrylic is better at not breathing. So this is the back of it. This part right here is actually a hood. It is a hooded coat that you basically will sew up at the top, and then on these edges here, you're gonna still put that rickrack like band. It's like a button band. Yeah, it's a button band. And this pattern is flying by because it's bulky weight, and I'm making the 3 to 6 month size. And so this is going to be, I'm making the 3 to 6 month size with bulky weight yarn, but the pattern calls for size US 10 needles. My niece Devin is a little peanut. She is quite small still. She isn't growing as large and as fast as other babies, which is totally natural, and she's still very healthy. But I wanted to make this, she's currently 2.5 months old. By the time she needs this, she will be 4 to 5 months old, and a 3 to 6 month will be big on her. So I actually decided to use size 9 needles. So I went down a needle size to try and get a tighter gauge and make a tighter, denser fabric, a warmer coat, make the 3 to 6 month size, but in a smaller needle to try and just find the perfect balance. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I've already separated the sleeves. I've just got some waist yarn here. And I am super stoked to finish this little coat. It's going to come off the needles very soon, I believe. I think I'm going to finish knitting the body in a day, maybe a day or two. And after that, I get to cast on for the little rickrack border stitch edge. And I'm super excited about that. And I can't wait to show you guys. And I can't wait to give this to my sister and to little baby Devin. I hope they keep some of these items that I'm knitting for her. Realistically, once I knit something, I want to just give it away. They can do with it what they choose. But for Devin, I would love to allow them to save some of her small baby things so that she can, I don't know, have them as keepsakes. Is that selfish of me that I want them to keep some of these things? I mean, whatever, this is knit in acrylic yarn. I'm not expecting this to be like heirloom quality, but maybe it will be. So the interesting thing with this is that this is all stockinette, and it's knit flat. And what I actually have done, I started doing mirror knitting, where basically you knit across the row, and instead of purling back, you basically knit backwards into the front of your work from your left needle to your right needle. It's backwards knitting or mirror knitting, and I actually got quite fast at it, and I don't think I have a problem with my gauge. When I had a ton of stitches on the needles for these little the little arms, I was purling back just because I'm still faster at purling, I'm still better at purling, but not faster by much. And so mirror knitting is another way, like using big yarn and big needles, like purling is cumbersome, and I find that mirror knitting isn't as cumbersome, but it's just slower. And so I'm trying to like increase my speed and not have to worry about my hands hurting because I'm purling with bulky yarn and bulky needles. And so I actually think that it's been turning out pretty fine. And then once I wash this, I'm hoping that any issues with my gauge will just be fine. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, that is going to be the hooded version of the Latte Baby Coat by Lisa Shemry. And I'm super stoked about it. And my sister chose this color, which is so not her color. She is like neutrals all the way. Neutrals and like earth tones, like greens and browns. So when she chose this wine color, I was absolutely shocked. but we chose this before her baby, you know, even came into the world, and so that's what she's chosen. Okay, for my last work in progress, I have been so inspired with designing lately, and if you've seen the last couple episodes, I just released a pattern called the Veni Vidi Vici shawl, which is a V-shaped shawl that's just knit in basic garter stitch. It's super easy. So I released that pattern, and I was actually planning this second one before I even released the first, and this is coming along just swimmingly, so I'm really happy. I'm gonna try and find the best way to show it off. There we go. This is another V-shaped shawl. It's hard for me to stretch it out on the needles, but it will become a V-shaped shawl. And this is knit in like a cool fisherman's rib sort of pattern. There we go. And this is knit out of Malabrigo dos Tierras yarn. It's a DK weight yarn, which is 50% alpaca, 50% wool. And this is in the colorway Matisse Blue. And I'm knitting this as sort of the first sample, and this fisherman's rib is just a super squishy stitch. So this is the front of the work, this is the back of the work, and you can see some of these like sort of garter bump things, they're just really squishy and soft. And so this is meant to be sort of a lightweight DK shawl, which is maybe used half for warmth and half for fashion. I'm hoping that this is going to use only two skeins of DK weight yarn. Again, this is the Malabrigo dos Tierras. Yeah, 50% merino, 50% baby alpaca in the Matisse Blue colorway. This is the second skein that I have. First skein obviously is caked up, but this is going to take 2 skeins of DK weight yarn, and the first full skein is going to be used completely in the shawl. The second skein, I am going to add a ton of fringe at the bottom, and then I think I'm going to have extra, so I'm going to make sort of a matching headband. So I really want to release sort of a dual pattern for a fisherman's rib sort of DK weight shawl, a V-shaped shawl with fringe, as well as a sort of cool ear band to keep you warm and to match a little bit. But we'll see if that all happens. Either way, I'm just really loving this knit. It's super fast. Like in my other pattern, because it's a V-shaped, like all of this in the middle is empty. And so you're not knitting all of this extra shawl that just takes up yarn, it takes up space, and it bulks around your neck. I just don't want that, and this is why I'm designing this like V-shaped shawl. And so I think it's going to be a huge, big thing. Obviously, I'll keep you posted. As soon as I'm finished, I'm going to make a call for test knitters. Reply to that video, not to this one if you're interested, or you can always follow me on Instagram. I'm going to post some things there. But yeah, I love the design. That's a good way of showing it. I love the design. It's really easy. This fisherman's rib is just a combination of knits and purls in the right places. Nothing complicated. This is definitely like a beginner to maybe intermediate pattern at most. It's not, it's really not going to be a difficult pattern. I don't want it to be difficult. So that's that. So that is all for my knitting. If you came here just for the knitting, you can head out, click on another video, watch another podcast, say goodbye right now. Thank you so much for watching. But if you're interested, I am going to sort of give a little life update, things that have been going on here in Cairo, and how I've been feeling, etc., etc. So you can stick around if you're interested for that. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye! Okay, for the rest of you who have stayed, thank you so much. I've blown my nose, I've taken a sip of water, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life. I have been feeling so adult lately, and I know that's like such a millennial thing to say, like, oh, I'm feeling like such an adult, but really I've made some hard life decisions in the last like week-ish. So first things first, I've finished my job at Reach Out Academy here in Duki, which is in Giza, which is just next to Cairo. I finished my work. For the last 6 months, I've been teaching English to Egyptian and non-Egyptian students here in Cairo, and I've been having such a blast doing it. When I was in London about a year ago, I took a course called the CELTA, which is a certificate for English language teaching to adults. It basically is a certificate that allows you to teach English to international students wherever you go. If you ever want to travel the world and live there for 6 to whatever months, you're welcome to just teach English for a while, make some money. This is a great way to travel and see the world. I did this course because I knew I was coming to Cairo and I knew I wanted to teach English while I was here. I was going to be here for 6 to 8 months. That's what I've been doing. So I've been teaching for the last 6 months. I've had a really amazing last month with my students. So the school I teach at, it was like month-long courses. And so this past month, I had some students that I'd had before as well as some new students, and it was just like a really good batch of students. So on my last day of work, which was yesterday, it was yesterday, Thursday, the 19th of July, I had to say goodbye to all my students, and it was really sad, but a bittersweet moment because I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to go home back to the United States and find a job, etc. But saying goodbye to my students who I've seen and worked with every week for a long time has been hard. One group of students in particular, one class that I really enjoyed and I connected with them and they were so great, they actually threw me a little party. So the last day was their exam. They had to take like the final test, right? And so they take this test, everybody waits for their scores, and then they're like, oh, Miss Maggie, like come over here really quick, we just want 5 minutes of your time. So I walk into this other classroom, and they've like set up a full party. They wrote on the board like, surprise, Miss Maggie, we're gonna miss you. They had a gigantic cake. Mind you, my students, they were a group of like 13 to 15 students, depending on who actually attended class. So there were about 13 students. They had this gigantic cake that was half chocolate and half like fruit and vanilla. Obviously, I took a slice of chocolate. They got me a really beautiful necklace. I should have brought it over here. Hold on, I'm gonna do it. So they bought me actually a gift that came in this lovely keepsake box, which is like ancient Egyptian. It's got sort of these like, they're actually slaves. I don't know how I feel about that, but they've got these ancient Egyptian sort of inscriptions on here. And inside, they got me a real silver necklace as a gift. And now this shape here is the ancient Egyptian, is called the Ankh, and this is the key of life. And this was basically a very popular symbol that you see everywhere in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and everything. And basically this was a symbol for where your soul goes to the afterlife, right? It's the idea that your soul continues after you die. And I thought it was really nice. They just got this for me because it's like ancient Egyptian and I'm a tourist essentially. But this is real silver and like probably semi-precious stones here. And they're my students. I've had these students for 2 months and they got me like a really amazing gift. They bought a huge expensive cake and they got me some takeout of my favorite food in Egypt, which is kushari. And so kushari is the national dish of Egypt. The base of it is rice, spaghetti, macaroni, and vermicelli noodles, topped with lentils and chickpeas and fried onions that you pour tomato sauce and like this garlic water on it. And it is like fantastic. It's absolutely delicious. And so I use that as my go-to sort of example when we talk about food in class. I'll be like, you know, teaching grammar and I'll be like, oh, when have you eaten koshari in the last month, whatever. And so they bought me koshari, which was so sweet. And so it was just a really great way to say goodbye. I was really sad and I like got some tears in my eyes because I'm going to miss them and I'm going to miss teaching. Which brings me to my next point, which is that I sort of decided that as much as I love teaching English, it's not a viable career option in the United States. And I'll tell you why. So I've been working for 6 years for the English as a second language industry. I've worked in administration, basically doing student services, academic advising, and English language sales to new students, all of which are full-time jobs. But teaching English is obviously like the product, and so your teachers are the most important part. Your teachers are the ones who actually work with the students who are actually making a difference, and so I knew I wanted to start teaching. The only problem is that in the United States, teaching English is exclusively a part-time job. There are no benefits, there are no 401ks. You might be making like $30,000 working part-time, which is a lot of money, but in California, $30,000 isn't really enough to support yourself, let alone the fact that my husband is a PhD student. Well, he's a PhD candidate, so he teaches some classes, but his salary is not enough to sort of supplement mine, and so I need a full-time job. And so for the last month, I've been really grappling with this. Do I want to do something I quote-unquote love, teaching, which doesn't pay full-time, which won't give me benefits. I'd have to spend money on health insurance. I wouldn't be able to save money in my 401k. I wouldn't be able to save any money for international travel and the things I love. Or do I go back to what I am comfortable doing, what I'm trained to do, which is administration and student services and academic advising and sales and working inside an English school. And I decided that I have to go on that route. Realistically, English teaching, there's sort of this ceiling. Once you make a certain amount of money, there's no way to make more money. And I want to be like comfortably middle class, you know? I want to be able to take a vacation every year. I want to be able to afford a house if I so choose one day, and English teaching won't afford me that. Not only that, there's no career advancement with ESL teaching. And so as much as I would have a great time for a couple of years, I would actually be hindering my career because I wouldn't be gaining new skills. Like, I hate to say this because I don't believe that this is true, but the industry is such that if you're a teacher, you're seen as not gaining skills, whereas if you're administration, you're seen as always being a part of the changing times. You always have new techniques, new advising skills, new courses to offer, new this and that. Somehow it's seen that administration is more valuable than teaching. So I decided that I don't really have a choice. I'm sort of pushed into going back to school administration. That said, teaching English has been nice, but I don't have the same feeling of like, oh, well, this was obviously what I was going to do, and oh, this is obviously like what I'm meant to do. Like, I don't have this feeling like teaching is, you know, somehow extremely different than administration. I've been teaching for 6 months, and by the end of it, I was like, ugh, I gotta go to work. Like, ugh, it's a job. Ugh, I have problem students. Ugh, it's like, who cares, you know? Like, I still have those challenges that come with any job. And so I think I was hoping that teaching would be this magical career, but it's really not. And so that was the first sort of hard decision that I had to make lately. Anyway, that was that. In terms of other things in my life, since last I've seen you, I have officially been vegetarian for 5 months. This was something that I have been dabbling with for a little over a year now. Last year when I was in London, I went vegan for a little bit, and then I traveled to France, and long story short, I sort of broke my veganism, but I've been like eating more vegetarian since then. And then 5 months ago, I like decided to just go full vegetarian. And so I've been vegetarian for 5 months. Cool, man. I love that. And I do actually have plans to go vegan once I go back to the United States. In Egypt, it's really difficult to be vegan, especially living abroad. You don't have sort of the kitchen utensils that you might want. I don't have a blender, so I can't make cashew sauces or like roast cauliflower sauces. You know, like they don't sell tofu or, you know, like coconut yogurt or any of these other sort of alternatives, these non-dairy alternatives in Egypt. And so I've been vegetarian, but I hope to go vegan once I sort of land in San Diego permanently. But we'll see how that goes. I definitely don't have plans to stop being vegetarian, but vegan is sort of up in the air right now. I would just love to. Honestly, people ask me, like, why do you want to go vegan or why do you want to go vegetarian? And I'm like, well, here's the thing. I don't actually love animals that much, but I definitely don't condone like the treatment of animals in animal agriculture, like factories and slaughterhouses. I mean, if you do even a little bit of surface digging, you'll see the way that these animals are treated throughout their lives, and then the way that they're slaughtered. It just doesn't jive with my moral sort of feelings. And so I decided to sort of, I decided to stop eating meat. And that's what I'm going to do. And I hope to continue with that. Cool. In my last little update, I am planning to go home soon-ish. My husband and I have been talking, and our initial plane tickets were to come back September 15th, but he has to start teaching September 24th, so 9 days after we get back to Michigan, he is supposed to be teaching in San Diego. So we decided, like, hey, maybe I should go back a little bit early, find an apartment, set up our apartment with all of our furniture so that when Paul comes back to the United States, that he can just sort of arrive to a fully furnished apartment with all of his stuff and not have to worry about moving in a day before he has to start work at UCSD, right? And so we decided on that, and I am thinking that I'm going to be returning to the US on like maybe August 21st. There's a ticket that looks perfect, August 21st or 22nd, which would get me home a day later. And then I'm going to take a trip with my mom out to San Diego, where I'm going to be looking for an apartment, finding a job, and then hopefully living there so that I can, you know, just make all of these things happen. So that's another exciting thing, and I'm really happy to be going back to San Diego. I'm gonna see my friends, and I'm gonna like go to the beach, and I'm gonna wear shorts, and I'm gonna show cleavage, and I'm gonna do all the things I can't do in Egypt. Honestly, I don't feel like oppressed in Egypt by any means, but you know, I want to be able to like show my cleavage a little bit and like go to the club and like have an alcoholic beverage if I so choose, and like drink my favorite beers. I miss beer. God, this is the Knitter's Party podcast, and we have been lacking the party for like 6 months. So if you're waiting for me to get my drink on so that you can get your drink on, by all means, wait a little bit longer, but I promise I will be coming for you. You won't be drinking alone much longer, okay? Anyway, so that's exciting, and I can't wait to do all of these things and to go home. The last exciting update is that my mother-in-law, like I said, is coming to Egypt tomorrow. So we have another week of vacation planned, another week of tourism. And so, of course, we're going to take her to the Cairo tourism destinations, like visiting the pyramids, going inside a pyramid, maybe. I think she is contemplating riding a camel. We'll see. I don't know if that like fits her personality so much, but we'll see. And I'd be super impressed if she did. But I obviously don't expect her to. But we're going to be visiting the pyramids. We're going to be visiting old Coptic Cairo, which is like the Christian quarter, and see some ancient churches that are there. And then we are taking a day trip back to Alexandria, where I've lived twice in my life, to sort of see the catacombs and some of the ancient ruins of Cleopatra's time, which was about the year 0, during the time of Julius Caesar, Mark Antony. All these famous stories that you've heard, it all happened in Egypt, guys. So I'm excited about that. After she leaves, I'll have about 3 weeks to continue my job search, continue knitting, sort of pack up, change my flights. And then, of course, I'm going to be helping my husband sort of go around to extra sports clubs and hopefully help him get access to some of these sports clubs that might have libraries or some things that he needs for his research. And so we will, we'll see how that goes. So that's basically my life this past month in a nutshell. I look forward to seeing you guys again. It might be 3 weeks before my next podcast, only because this week I'm not going to be knitting so much because my mother-in-law is here. But even then, like, you see my dwindling yarn stash. I don't really have a lot left to knit before I go back to the States, and I would love to just knit it all up and then just say goodbye and be done. That's it. Okay, I'm leaving now, so thank you so much for joining me if you made it this far, and have a good day. Happy knitting. I will see you next time here at the Knitter's Party podcast. Thank you so much. Bye!